Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and today I'm bringing you a double header in the next installment of my RPG battle series. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what this series is, I basically use a random Pokemon generator to make a team of 6 Pokemon and use them in a battle. So today I got a pretty interesting mix. I got a Milotic, which I made pretty standard with Scald, Dragon Tail, Sleep Talk, and Rest. It's basically mostly defensive. A Meganium, which I gave max physical defense, and also a few interesting moves which you will see throughout the battle. A Raikou, which is basically a standard special attacker with lots of speed. The Lunatone is there to set up Stealth Rock and also potentially Toxic Stall. It has Toxic and Pain Split on it, along with Psychic. Absol is just basically a physical attacker. It has Sword Stance to set up and, Sucker Punch and all that with its Super Luck ability. It can be very deadly. And Crobat is there to just be super fast, Brave Bird everything, and Roost and U-turn and do all that kind of shenanigans. But today, my first battle that I'm bringing you is against someone by the name of Pokemon is Fun. So I lead off with my Lunatone, and I know a U-turn's coming because they did lead off with a Darmanitan, and I knew I can live it anyway, so I just take this opportunity to set up my Stealth Rocks right away. Unfortunately for me though, he does go into a Blastoise, which means he's just going to Rapid Spin them. Kind of unfortunate, but I do take this opportunity to use Toxic on this Blastoise, which, is always very useful. Earlier when the Darmanitan U-turned, by the way, it did reveal to me that it was Life Orbed, which means that I don't have to fear any of the traditional Scarfed sets. If you notice right there, my Lunatone does pack the Rocky Helmet, mainly because I just wanted a more interesting item on it than Leftovers, and in this battle it turned out to be pretty useful because I got a little bit of damage on both the Blastoise and the Darmanitan. Now, I do take this opportunity to switch into Raikou, because obviously, electric move is going to threaten out the Blastoise, and so I just go right in for a Thunderbolt. He doesn't have anything on his team that does resist ground. I'm sorry I don't have a team picture up of my opponent's team. I just figured I would just show the one that I was generated. But the Thunderbolt does a pretty good amount to this Bronzong, revealing that it'll be a 3-hit KO. And now Bronzongs do typically pack Earthquake, but I figured at this point in the battle he was just going to Stealth Rock anyway, and so I was just going to keep Thunderbolting to potentially 3-hit KO this thing. And even if he did Earthquake, I didn't think it would kill. But he decides to switch into his Blastoise this turn, which I don't really know why. I guess he just figured it was the least useful thing on his team and he didn't want anything else to take a Thunderbolt. But I end up taking out the Blastoise, which is really nice because they can be pretty annoying walls. Now here, he brings in the Victini, and I am under the impression that it is Scarfed, so I switch out right away because there's no way I can outspeed it. And he goes for a V-Create, pretty expected, because V-Create just kills everything. It actually does 50% to this Milotic, and even though I do have a good amount of investment in physical defense and max HP, I'm still not going to be able to take 2, which is really unfortunate, so I lose my Milotic right away, and it doesn't really get to do anything in this battle. But here, since he does have quite a bit lowered stats, or his stats are lowered quite a bit, sorry about that, I take this opportunity to bring in my Absol and set up a Sword Stance because he clearly would not want to stay in because I could easily just take it out with any type of dark move that I'm packing. So I end up doing that and I get to +2, and +2 Absol is one of the most threatening things in the world. There is just very little that can deal with it, but fortunately for me, my opponent misses his Sleep Powder, and I end up taking out this Roserade with a Night Slash, which is really good. The crit didn't matter because Roserade has terrible physical defense, but here he brings in the Heracross, and I definitely cannot stay in because both of its stab will easily kill my Absol. So I gotta switch out to my Crobat, which 4 times resist both the Close Combat and the Mega Horn, which probably would be coming. And so here, I just leave this thing in, and I'm gonna basically threaten it with a Brave Bird. If this thing isn't Scarfed, it could potentially go for Stone Edge, but even in that case, I would outspeed it anyways. I later find out that it is Scarfed. But I just Brave Bird, and it does a good amount of damage to the Bronzong, but it doesn't kill it because it resists it. So I do take out this opportunity now to just U-turn out of there and go back into my Raikou because it did a really good job of handling the Bronzong before. On switching in though, I do take a good chunk of damage from Stealth Rock as well as the gyro ball that just came my way. Now this gyro ball is probably going to be at its max power because Raikou is very fast, Bronzong is very slow, plus, you know, being a 150 base power move with stab, it's going to do a heck of a lot of damage. So I'm at 50% and I just take the opportunity to Volt Switch out. Now normally it's not advised to use a switching out move when you kill something because your opponent gets the initiative, but I want them to have the initiative this turn because I wanted to force him to bring in his Heracross again so I could just go right back into Crobat. But fortunately for me, he actually goes into Darmanitan and I'm able to just sucker punch it and take it out. The crit probably mattered there, but Absol does have that super luck ability and I'm really fortunate that that happened. But you're going to see in a second that the crit actually gets, there's karma in this game because I bring in my Crobat to take the Heracross's close combat or Megahorn, and he gets a crit with his close combat, meaning that I will unfortunately not be able to threaten this Heracross out with a Brave Bird because on the next turn he reveals that he is Scarfed and he does close combat me, gets another crit as well. That one didn't really matter, but I did Roost on that turn. If he didn't kill me off, I would have gotten that up, so that's kind of unfortunate. But here I just switched into Meganium because I just wanted to leave it in, or I just wanted to bring this in. If it was going to just go for close combat again, I did go for Protect just to get a little bit more leftovers recovery to hopefully take it. But here he just goes back into Victini, and I'm thinking I'm just going to die on this turn, so I just go for Counter, which I did pack for whatever reason. I just thought it was interesting that Meganium used it, and I've never used Counter on Meganium before. But luckily for me, he does go for U-turn, and so I get to counter all that damage that I just took from the U-turn onto the Heracross and take it out in one shot, which is absolutely amazing. So now all he has left is the Victini, and here he makes the decision to not go for V-Create because he realizes that because of the stat drops he'd get from that move, he would basically lose the match right away because being at -1 speed and -1 physical defense and special defense, he wouldn't be able to take hits from my other Pokemon, so he could have potentially taken the rest of my team out if he did, you know, be successful with the U-turning. But unfortunately for me, I do live the first U-turn, wow, and Leech Seed him on that turn, to which I continuously just Protect afterward. I end up getting 3 Protects in a row, which I was just going for because I was like, well, what else am I going to do? If I don't Protect, I'm just going to die from U-turn. But if I do, you know, there's a chance that I can just keep recovering HP. So here I'm basically at half life again, and I can live another U-turn, so I decided to go for Counter again and take out the Victini for the win. So this match ended because Meganium countered 2 pokes. But on to the next match. It's up against someone by the name of Lord of Legumes. I don't know why Zoroark showed up there on the screen. It was just a little glitch with the playback thing. But he leads off with Deoxys D, and he sets up a lot of spikes. Well, I just go for Dragon Tail right away with my Melodic because I don't want it to continuously set up spikes. But unfortunately, I Dragon Tail him out into something that is U-turn, so he just brings it right back in. And on this turn I went for Scald. Luckily I get the burn. That's kind of what my Melodic is meant to do. It's just meant to burn things and Dragon Tail them out. Unfortunately, I missed this second Dragon Tail. He sets up another layer of spikes, but because I missed the Dragon Tail, he does get to set up his final layer. And that kind of sucks for me because, you know, I have a bunch of entry hazards on my side of the field now. But I Dragon Tail him this time out into his Registeel, get another burn, which is really awesome. 30% for me seems a lot more than 30% half the time. But he sets up his rocks with his Registeel, so now he basically has full entry hazards going on, meaning anytime I switch something in, it's going to take a huge chunk of damage. So I just continue to use Scald, and here he goes for Taunt. I don't know why. He could have just went for Recover and just kept getting more and more HP back because, you know, he does have, or he would have been able to take the Scalds more, or he would have been able to recover more from the Scalds than they were doing. But he just goes for Taunt, and then he lets his Deoxys D die while he brings in his Zoroark, which Grass Knots me twice. But unfortunately, my Melodic has very, very good special defense, so he's not going to be able to take me out with 2 Grass Knots, and I'm able to finish off the Zoroark with 2 Scalds of my own. Here he goes into his Crobat, and his Brave Birds me for the kill. I did go for Rest on that turn in case he wanted to go for U-turn to be funny or something, but you know, I unfortunately lose my Melodic, but it did a really good job taking out 2 pokes and burning a couple things, and it did a really good job that battle. But here I just bring in my Lunatone. I know a U-turn's coming, so I just go for Stealth Rock. Kind of the same situation as the last battle, but you know, I just basically get to do actually the same exact thing. I Stealth Rock and I Toxic something. That's basically all Lunatone ever does in these battles. But he sets up a Bulk Up and Leaf Blades me for the kill. But because of Toxic wearing down his HP a little bit, I'm able to bring in my Crobat now and successfully take it out with a Brave Bird, even though he does have that +1 defense, but stab Brave Bird from Crobat, very powerful, so it shouldn't be something he wanted to mess around with. Unfortunately though, my opponent has yet another Blastoise, which is able to Rapid Spin my rocks away, so I don't get to do anything with entry hazards in this game, whereas he is able to set up all of his. But I just Super Fang, and then I just go for Brave Bird, while he takes me out with a Scald this turn from a crit. It probably did matter, but even if it didn't, I would have just roosted, and he would eventually get a burn anyway, so it would have just been like mindless stalling. So no big deal there, and so now that my Crobat's dead, bring in my Absol to revenge kill it with Night Slash. And here he goes into Registeel. I do have Superpower, so I go for that right away. I probably should have went for Swords Dance first in hindsight, because I would have been able to be at +1 right here after a Superpower, but instead I'm -2 because a +2 Superpower would have taken out the Registeel from that range. Which is kind of unfortunate, because that means on the next Pokemon that he brings in, which is his last, and the Crobat, this Sucker Punch that I get off on it does basically half the damage that it would have done. So right now this thing would be sitting at like 28% HP as opposed to like, you know, 61. But here I decided to go in Meganium just to kind of be annoying. I really wanted to go into, or I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go into Meganium or Raikou there, because I wasn't sure if the Raikou would be able to take a U-turn because of the entry hazard damage. But basically the next series of turns is just me constantly going for counter, while my opponent just goes for taunt and roost to try to PP stall the counter. The thing is though, that counter with max PP has like something like 32, so regardless of whether he wanted to keep roosting and taunting, I think I would have won out in the end with the PP advantage. But eventually, as you're going to see, he does go for Brave Bird. It doesn't kill my Meganium, and I'm able to counter it for the win. So 2 battles end with Meganium countering, and I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I have never used a Meganium set with counter before. I do often run max physical defense Meganiums, which I find to be the most useful. But putting counter on it was kind of just like a last minute thing that I decided to do for the hell of it, and it ended up working out really well. But this was basically a really fun exhibition of, you know, Meganium doing work and taking out Pokemon with counter. I thought the team that I got this time was actually pretty good. There weren't really any really bad Pokemon on it, because everything kind of did something. I guess Lunatone was the most useless of them all, but it did manage to set up entry hazards and Toxic a couple things, which helped to take them out a little bit easier. But that's it for the next installment of my RPG battles. I hope you enjoyed this double header, and as always guys, take care and goodbye.